You Google things late at night that you'd never say out loud. Things like, why doesn't my husband have any empathy? Or why does my husband correct me constantly, right? Or why does my marriage feel so one-sided? And maybe, you've started asking a different kind of question. Maybe you've started to ask, well, is it possible? Could my husband be autistic? Yeah. And so if you're here, something did, my friend, something brought you to that question. And I want you to know you're not crazy for asking it. Not at all. Not at all. You're not imagining things. And this particular video right here, this is for you. So today I'm excited because I'm sharing 9 signs that your husband may have high functioning autism. Yeah. And the part that makes this so very, very hard, most of the time, he doesn't even know it. No, he doesn't know it at all. And these signs, they are not clinical checklists. These are real lived sort of daily things that women in neurodiverse marriages go through, right? These are things that they actually experience. And so we're going to talk about those, and hopefully things will start to make sense for you. Well, before we get started, my name is Olivia Hall. I have been married to my good looking, wonderful, autistic husband for over 25 years, and I'm still here. We're still doing this thing together by choice, by the way, with tools. Yeah, with tools. And with a whole lot more peace than I had in those early years of marriage. And I'm so glad about that. So I want you to stay with me, because sign number 9 that we're going to talk about, the very last one, it is the one that it changed everything. It changed everything for me. And I'm hoping, and I really do, I think it might change things for you too. Well, if you're ready, let's get right into it. But before we get into the signs, I I just want to say this. I am not a therapist by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not a doctor of any kind. I am a wife just like you. Early on, I was wondering is there something wrong with me, right? And so when I finally started, kind of learning about autism in adults, specifically high functioning autism, which a lot of people now they call it level 1 autism or autism spectrum disorder or ASD1. Once I started learning about, autism in adults and all of the terms for it, it was like someone just turned the light switch on, right? And everything started to make sense. And I understand if it feels kind of strange or you don't quite like labeling your husband. Um, but everything started to make sense to me in a way. Once I found out there was autism in adults, I started learning about the traits. I just kind of started to say, oh, that's why he behaves like this. Okay. So the label, it isn't a bad thing. It is just, it helps you, it clarifies what we're dealing with and the behaviors and traits that your husband may have. So let's talk about the signs. And this is what I want you to do, dear friend. I want you to notice, not diagnose. Remember, you and I are not therapists. Well, maybe you are. I'm not for sure, but I know I'm not. So let's not diagnose. Let's not start a fight. Don't you start a fight with your guy. Don't do that, please. But we're here to finally start to understand what we're dealing with. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get into the 9 signs. So sign number one, this one's kind of funny. I have to laugh, but sign number one, he corrects you constantly. And it's funny to me because it happens to me. I'm just going to be honest. So, you may say something, you may have a small observation, there is a casual comment you may leave, you're just having a casual conversation. And before you finish your sentence, he's correcting you, which is funny. Hey, I've been married for almost 30 years, so it tickles me now. Um, I can't say that it tickles me all of the time. Okay. But anyway, you know, the word may be wrong that you've used. The fact that you just stated may be wrong. The way you told the story is wrong, right? Yeah. And, it's not just facts, that he's correcting you on. He may have to give you a tutorial on how to properly load a dishwasher, right? You start to feel like you can't say anything right. So why am I talking to you, right? Yeah. Here's what's actually happening. The autistic brain is wired for accuracy. It's wired for correctness and logic. And those are not bad. Those are actually good things, right? Yeah, they are. The autistic brain, for example, the autistic brain notices when something is off in the same way that you or I notice when a smoke alarm goes off. I hope that makes sense. Um, and here's what's true. He's not he's not correcting you to hurt you. He's not correcting you to try to control you. His brain literally hones in on accuracy, like a homing pigeon, right? And it just comes out. There's no filter, um, no pause. He doesn't pause to think, if I correct her, will this hurt her? If I correct her, will this make her angry? If I correct her, will it make her lose her train of thought? Because that kind of social processing, um, it doesn't happen automatically. It doesn't happen automatically for him in the way that it does for you and I. So this doesn't mean you have to be okay with it. I'm not saying that you have to be okay with him correcting you with everything because I am not, okay? Um, it's exhausting, but understanding why it happens, that changes the conversation you can have about it. So, this is all about you learning about the signs of autism and why things happen. Okay, let's keep going. I hope that made sense. Okay, sign number two, he's a completely different person at work. So, his coworkers love him. His boss raves about him, right? People think he's funny, he's thoughtful, he's capable, right? And then he comes home and it's like somebody flipped a switch, right? Um, you know, he may be, once he gets home, he may be distracted, short, reactive. He may sort of be hard to reach. And you should give your guy, I suppose. Everybody wants once they hit the door, it's been a long day. So, you give people a little time to come through the door, put their things down, take a breath, right? If at all possible. And, but when your guy comes in, you know, he comes in a certain way, and you're standing there thinking, who is this? And why does everyone else get that other version, the good version of him, right? Why can he hold it together out there, at work, but not with me? And so what you're seeing is something called social masking. Yeah, it's called social masking. And many people with high functioning autism, especially the ones who were not diagnosed as children, they have spent like years and years learning how to perform neurotypically. I'm going to use the quote unquote the word normal. Okay. They've learned to act like everyone else in public. They watch people, they learn, they adapt, right? And they become incredibly good, really, really good at appearing to fit in, and they want to fit in. Okay. But that performance, when he performs out in the work, out in public or at work, it cost him something. Yeah. It's exhausting in a way most of us can't fully understand. Okay. Um, and by the time he gets home, um, he doesn't have anything to give you. He has nothing left. He has used up every single resource he has just to get through the day. Yeah. So home becomes the one place, dear friend, he doesn't have to mask. He can take that mask off. He can stop performing, which means you, the person he is most comfortable with, also becomes the person who gets the unfiltered, unmasked, completely depleted version of him, right? That's who you get. And that's not a compliment. I know that, but it's not rejection either. If you look at it from a different standpoint, home is really his safe place. But yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. I hear you. Let's go on to sign number 3. He shuts down the moment things get emotional. Okay. Um, you need to talk about something. Let's just say that you want to talk to him about something that's important, that matters to you. You've been holding it in all day, maybe all week. Okay. And just at the moment that you start talking about it, maybe if your voice, you know, you start to get a little emotional, as you're talking, um, you look at him and he has this blank stare, or, he'll give you a one-word answer. Um, he's sort of physically there, but he's checked out. Or worse, he leaves the room, right? And you're left sitting there or standing there mid-sentence, mind you, feeling like you don't even exist. You're like, well, excuse me. You know, Here's the question, does he even care? Does he care about me? Does he care about what I'm trying to say here? And this is this is something I want you to really hear, because it changed so very much for me. Um, the autistic brain can go into what researchers call emotional overwhelm, or sometimes shut down. Okay. And so when the emotional intensity in a conversation spikes, when it jumps, the nervous system floods. It's not a choice, and it's not by choice for them. He's not being cold. He is literally in a kind of neurological protective mode. Okay. That's where he's at. Don't shoot the messenger, but this is what it is, right? And you know, think of it less like he's putting up a wall and more like a circuit breaker that just has tripped. So, it's too much, it's an overload. The circuit breaker has tripped. Okay. So what this means for you, dear friend, is the way you approach conversations, the timing, the environment, the emotional temperature, all of that matters. It really matters. And it's not because you're doing anything wrong, but because understanding his nervous system, it actually helps you to get through to him. Sign number 4, he takes everything, literally everything, right? You know, you could say, here's an example. You might say something like, and this is really corny, but I'm just making it off the top of my head. You could say something like, I am so tired, I could just die. I could die. And then he may say something like, you should see a doctor. He misses your sarcasm. He doesn't get the sarcasm, right? He doesn't hone in on the tone, your tone. He answers just what you said, not what you meant. Do you get that? So he's very black and white, right? Very literal. And then he wonders why you're frustrated. He cannot read between the lines most of the time. Now, I've been married to my husband for over 30 plus years, so he's starting to get my sarcasm. We're starting to get that. And so, but not so much in the beginning. And sometimes he still misses things, which I have to sniggle sometimes, which is kind of funny to me. Language is one of the most socially complex things we do as human beings. It really is. And we use tone, and we use sarcasm, and most of us, we just know the rules. We instinctively know the unspoken, unwritten rules, right? But the autism brain, they have difficulty with that. They don't automatically um, absorb or instinctively understand the rules. So he's not playing dumb. He's not being difficult. He's genuinely processing language at face value. This one actually has a practical fix, okay? And it's never about dumbing yourself down, okay? It's about learning to be direct with your needs, okay? Which is a skill that serves you in every relationship that you're in, whether it's your boss or a family member, certainly your husband. Being direct with people, not him hawing around, right? And it requires you to say exactly what you want, right? None of that hinting stuff. It doesn't work with him. Okay, let's keep going. Boy, we got to get there. Sign number 555. He has an intense, all consuming special interest. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And whether it's trains, technology, military history, a sports team, woodworking, cars, investing, video games, there is something that gets his full attention. He can talk about it for hours. He knows everything about it. He lights up, just when he's talking about it, you know, but he doesn't light up for you so much, right? And, if you're honest about it, it hurts a little. So, the question is, how can he have that kind of energy and enthusiasm for his special interest, but not for you, for the relationship, right? Not for you two as a couple. And special interests, they are one of the most consistent traits in autism. Okay. They serve a real purpose, a neurological function for the person on the autism spectrum. It helps to regulate them. And there's actually something beautiful here. You know, um, when you understand what his interest means to him, when you really understand it, um, you can sometimes use it as a bridge. Yeah. Um, just if you just learned a little bit about what he's into, what he loves, if it's cars, if it's, you know, I don't know, it could be anything, right? And maybe you ask a question and let him share a little bit with you, but it can open a door for connection. Okay. Sign number 6, small changes cause big reactions. Maybe you've moved his coffee mug to a different spot or a different place on the shelf or in the kitchen. Or maybe you changed your weekend plans last minute, or you rearranged something in the house. You just rearranged it. And he notices, and his reaction to this simple small thing that you've done is completely out of proportion. It is like, huh? He's irritated, rigid. He might be even a little angry over something so small. So here it is. Routine and predictability are not just preferences, dear friend, for many autistic people. They are, they're really um, routine. It really regulates the person on the autism spectrum. This doesn't mean, you can never change anything. Like, oh, I have to keep everything the same, or just go. No, no, I am going to move some things, and I may move it not thinking about it or whatever, right? It does mean understanding what's actually happening. That's what we're doing here. We're understanding the why behind his behavior. That's what we're trying to do. Number 7, sensory things you never ever noticed are running everything. Mhm. Yeah. Um, maybe you've noticed, and maybe he won't eat certain foods, not because he's picky, but something about the texture makes him like physically sick. Loud restaurants can overwhelm him. Um, Certain fabrics, right? The TV can be too loud. The kids can, be too chaotic for him. The lights may be too bright. So sensory processing um, differences are very common in autism. And the brain always, it doesn't always filter sensory inputs the same way that neurotypical brains, function. When you start to understand his sensory world, right, a lot of things start to make sense. Okay. Sign number 8, he comes home empty and you get the leftovers. So we sort of talked about that, right? So, he's been at work all day, right? Or maybe he's been out running errands, or, he's just been out and about, right? And when he comes home, um, there's nothing left for you. Nothing. He doesn't want to talk. He doesn't want to engage with you. He wants to sit in his chair, watch his show, do his thing, his special interest, and not be needed. Do not bother me. When folks on the autism spectrum, when they mask, it costs them something. It takes a toll. It takes a lot of energy to perform, to not be who you really are, right? And so many high functioning autistic adults are running on near empty by the time they get home from work. This is sometimes called autistic burnout. Nope, here we are, sign number 9. Do 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 do. Here's sign number 9, dear friend. He loves you. He does. He loves you. He just can't show it in the way that you need. You've wondered for a very, very long time whether he actually loves you. He doesn't reach for your hand. He doesn't notice when you're upset. He doesn't ask how your day was. He doesn't remember the things that matter to you. And you've started to wonder, dear friend, um, if maybe the answer is maybe no. So I want to introduce you to a word, maybe you've heard of it, but the word is alexithymia. Okay. And it's incredibly common in autism. Okay. And what it means is, in very simple terms, is that um, autistic people have difficulty identifying and describing their own emotions. So, he might totally be in love with you and, you know, have almost no idea how to make you feel that, you know. It's not that the love isn't there, dear friend. It's that the translation is broken. It wasn't anything that I thought. It was how his brain was wired, right? And I didn't understand it. And when I finally understood, everything shifted. It really, really did. And it didn't happen overnight. I will tell you that. It did not happen overnight. And that's why you're watching these videos. So you can collapse time and you can understand these things today. Okay. It didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen perfectly, but things did change for the better. And he's not withholding love from you, dear friend. He may simply just not know how to give it in the language that you speak. Okay. And that is actually something that can change. That's something that can be worked on. And now it's not through willpower. Um, it's not through trying harder, but it's through understanding and using the right tools and through um, having a different kind of conversations than the ones you've been having before because you're learning new things. Okay. Um, Now, if you're sitting there, you're watching me and you've been nodding along like, uh-huh, uh-huh, sign number 5, sign, okay. And if you're thinking, this, Olivia, this is my marriage, this is definitely my husband, and this is how we've been living for years. And, if that's you, I want to make sure, dear friend, um, that you have somewhere to go from here. Um, because information is a start, okay, and that's good. But information alone, it does not change what happens daily in your marriage, right? So I created a free quiz. It's called the Neurodiverse Marriage Blueprint Quiz, and it's designed specifically for women just like you, um, who are wondering, what's actually happening in my marriage, in your marriage, right? And it takes about 5 minutes. And at the end, it gives you a personalized breakdown of, just what might be going on in your specific marriage. It gives you a breakdown of what type of support makes the most sense for you, and the next step to take. So it's completely free. It's completely free. The link is right below this video in the description. And honestly, just taking this free quiz, it might be one of the most clarifying things that you do today. Yeah. And if you want to go deeper, I also wrote a book called You're Not Crazy, He's Autistic. It sort of is my story and it walks you through exactly what we talked about today and so much more in a way that's practical. It's not clinical. It's a nice little short book, and it may actually help you from in your daily marriage. And so I'll put a link to that too. So before I let you go, I just want to say, you know I just want to say this because I really need for you to hear me. You are not crazy. You are not too sensitive. um, you are not asking for too much. You are a woman you've been carrying something incredibly heavy. You really have. And if you recognize your marriage in, some of these signs, I'd love for you to tell me in the comments below. Um, and, which one of these signs hit closest to home for you? If you haven't already, please subscribe. I just want you to check out the next video here